and religious institutions as well as government. That cover a tremendous number of institutions. The purpose is what the Roman Catholic system has all the time as her own purpose, is to infiltrate, to penetrate all the areas of life where the Roman Catholic can have control and access for the coming world government. What that means is, in preparation for that world government, the Roman Catholic institution, especially since the establishment of the Jesuit order in 1541, throughout all these 500 years, they've been in preparation and through infiltration and penetration of every level of society in order to take over the world politically and religiously.
My devotion to the Constitution and support of it.
Abraham Lincoln, the president, was killed by the Jesuit of Rome, but there was no Jesuit there involved directly. It happened with President Kennedy, the same thing. You have two different extremes. In Abraham Lincoln, you have that there was a man professing to be a Christian, solid Christian, and then there you have a man that professed to be a solid Catholic, but then put to shame his own institution when he was confronted about what he will do as a Roman Catholic president about the Constitution and about the interests of the Roman Catholic institution. When he placed the Constitution of the United States above the canon laws of the institution, he called for disaster.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
There are two doctrines that define very well these dangerous goal of the Roman Catholic institution. Two doctrines define this very well. One is called the doctrine of the apostolic succession, and that is dealing with the papacy. And the other is the doctrine, the temporal power, and that is dealing with world government. Of course, both, because you can see that even the Pope and his own individual office, he meet those requirements. He is not only the head of his church, as he called himself, John Paul II, the present Pope. He said he is the pastor of his church. He is not only that, but he is the head of his state, of his country. But that means he is the head of a political state. Both combinations are in one office there. And prophetically speaking, that is what we see in the book of Revelation. The political power always hand to hand with the religious power. There is more, but I will mention these three, the most important ones, in dealing with one special area, prophecy. They were assigned to deal especially with prophecy, with the purpose to do two things at least: to cover up any prophecy relate to the origin of the Antichrist, relate to the Antichrist, and relate to the papacy, relate to the Antichrist. And second, to cover up any idea that the Roman Catholic institution was never a Christian church, as I pointed out before. What that means is to make possible in Bible commentaries and church history that the Roman Catholic institution always will appear as a Christian church falling in apostasy, and then we need a renewal. That was the idea that Rivera, Alcázar, and Lacus tried to trace. Among other things, they tried to implement the idea that most of the prophecies of the book of Revelation were already fulfilled by the time of Nero. What that means is that don't worry about prophecies today. Don't worry about the Antichrist. Don't worry about a one world government. Don't worry about nothing like that. Yes, that's correct. And then Mr. Walter Martin, he himself, even so that I knew his name and the list of very confident persons by the Jesuit order. What that means is that the Jesuit order will have a list made up in the United States of people as well as institutions that are worth trusting. And Mr. Walter Martin, I even mentioned to him in this confrontation with him that his name was listed in that list.
What did he say?
And he said to me, well, I don't know why my name is there. I said, you should know.
You should know.
Yes. I said, you should know. As a matter of fact, why Mr. Walter Martin, 25 years ago, he even wrote about the cult to Mary, a book about Mary, and 25 years after, he have a list, as a matter of fact, that I have with me, a list of cults where he lists the most dangerous cults, and all who in the list of his most dangerous cults are Christian Science, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, starting with the Mormons. And suddenly, I was expecting that he will place at the top of the most dangerous cult Roman Catholicism, but were the Mormons. Now, the Mormons become the victim of Roman Catholicism not only, but become the victim of Mr. Walter Martin, because even the Mormons are the product of Roman Catholicism.
And while knocking on different doors to gain entrance, he was invited into a home very quickly, and he wondered how come he didn't have to use his door openers. When he went in, the fellow who had invited him into his home said, I know who you people are. And he said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, let me show you something here. And he moved aside a rug from his flooring there, and under that rug was a door. He lifted up the door, and here were stairs that went down into a basement. And he said, I would like to show you something. So they went down into the basement, and this individual whose home he was in showed him just many files. And as he was looking at these files, he wondered what it meant. He said, well, he says, we know who you are, and I would like to ask you a question. Name me a name of somebody who belongs to your church. And so he said, okay. He named him a name, one of his girlfriends. And this man went to a file, picked out that name, and said this person was baptized on such and such a date, a member of such and such a church, etc. And my friends said his eyes got very large, and he says, well, what does this mean? How come you have this information here? This fellow said, well, I belong to the Catholic Church. I belong to a special order, and we have all of you on files in different parts of the country. This is the file that we have on your members of your church here. We know who you are, and we have more complete records on you than I believe you people have for yourself. He said, I just wanted you to see that so you would know that we know who you are. Well, my friend left that home. He didn't sell any books, but I think he became a more serious, thinking individual after that.
Of these militant organizations, I train and prepare how they can become Baptists, how they can become Adventists, how they can become Methodists, how they can become Presbyterian, how they can become Pentecostal, and all these areas where they most infiltrate.